And hello, everybody. It's the Melon Man, and I'm back, and I am stoked. I'm stoked about this one. Okay, I've had a little bit of dialogue with Rosalind just on Messenger, and that's happened over the last couple of months. Back and forth, we've had to reschedule a couple times. I just have had my very first face-to-face conversation with Rosalind, and that was just 10 minutes, about 10 minutes. It could have been more. I lost track of time because in just a few minutes with her, I was already like, my light bulbs in my mind were just going boom, 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 boom. Like information is coming from this lady's life experience that is so valuable. So make sure you make the time to watch this one. You need to know that this is reality, that this reality is out there and it's been hidden from your eyes. You need to know that there's a whole nother reality out there that you're missing. And it's an important reality that will change your reality. And you need to know about this information. Now, this lady was introduced to this, fortunately, randomly in her life when she was 5, 6, 7 years old. When her neighbor down the street was someone who brought in someone from another country. Her neighbor was a friend of Swami Rama. Who knew? Who knew who Swami Rama was? Rosalind didn't. I didn't know who Swami Rama was until just now. I still don't know who Swami Rama is, only what she's shared with me in just a few minutes. Rosalind was 5, 6, 7. She used to see Swami Rama at her neighbor's house, and Swami Rama was juggling watermelons. To a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, that's pretty outrageous, and that inspired her. Amazing. She was inspired by Swami Rama and then took a liking to what he was saying and doing and started watching and imitating what Swami Rama was doing. I'm going to share with you what Swami Rama was doing today in our conversation. He was juggling watermelons. He was drinking something through his nose. And he was sharing some things with Rosalind that she learned at 6 and 7 and kept secret for 40 years because she didn't want anybody to know. She was embarrassed. She was scared. And I was embarrassed and scared about this for a year and a half before I started to talk about this. And I'm still embarrassed and scared about this every time I mention it. Every time I talk about it, I get scared because of what someone's going to say. And I've had so many people chime in and send me some hateful things as well, too, just so you know. I listen to hateful things and negative messages from people all day long because of this. And still, I'm sitting here talking to someone about it, and I'm putting it out there because I know how important it is. Because in the last year and a half, I've seen how it's changed my life. And in 45 years, Rosalind has seen how it's changed hers. She's 53 years old, and for 45 years, she's been engaged and interacting with her urine, her shivambu, her urine.
Bravo.
And she has an important message that you all need to hear. And we're all going to hear it today. Right? Rosalind, what was Swami Rama drinking through his nose?
He called it Shivambu.
He called it Shivambu.
Yep.
Why does what is Shivambu?
I'd call, the translation of urine therapy of Indian. I mean, that's he's from northern India, I gathered that much information. And he just shared that the Shivambu knows you and you know it. And also he shared that it comes from within you. So after pondering this little message for a couple of weeks and trying to still drink my water, not my water, but the water from the tap down my nose, and like, wait a minute, it's this fountain, the fountain within us that he's talking about, that Shivambu. So he was introducing a language of translation of sharing. And if didn't want to share, he pushed me away, but I always sat on the fringes just so I could see what he was doing. Certain days he'd put up a tent, and and then the bucket came into a tree, so I think he was doing enemas. He put out a red rug, which he identified as being, he wanted his space, his privacy. And so on those days, I didn't know what the bucket was, but there was a bucket above the tent, and he'd be in the tent laying down, and sometimes standing on his head, because I could see through the tent, because it was just a gauze tent. On the right light, you could see what he was doing inside. Not close up, but from a distance.
So he was likely doing enemas in the tent,
Mm-hmm.
urine enemas in the tent, and putting urine in his butt. He'd sniff it up his nose, he'd put it in his butt, he'd put it under his tongue, he'd put it in his ears, he put it in his eyes, he put it on his skin.
Correct.
And he drank it. Now, why do we do all these things with urine?
To wake up this lovely gift of this body on a spiritual journey, learning, observing, and more observing and more testing, and playing around with the alchemy, because that's what we're doing. It's playing around with the alchemy of our own waters.
Okay, I'm going to come to those jars that are behind you in just a minute.
Sure.
But I want to touch on something you said there. Orin therapy is a spiritual journey.
It's the true spirit from within. The other day, after doing a couple of cocktails, this little download, I'm here to nurture the soul. Our exterior application, if we take it internally, is to nurture the soul. Our sole purpose here is to learn and explore who we are and what we are and what's our purpose here. That's been generationally passed down to us, correct?
We're all here to love and to learn. We're all here to love and to learn. And urine therapy, Shivambu is an aspect of that.
It's an inner speaking of the answers we ask. Upon returning these liquids, our fluid, some of those answers are, those questions are answered.
Because the urine actually is within us. It actually comes from within us, and it has intention and knowledge and wisdom in it. And when it comes out of us, it's been through our entire body. It knows our intentions. It knows our issues. It knows our problems. It has a life.
It's living.
It's living.
We've been told, don't piss your life away. There's a little, we've all heard that. And the sad part is, majority of us are. As a population on this planet, this space we're in. And there's a deep, deep misunderstanding of what we call waste.
Yes. It's
We're a compost bin. I mean, there's dreams I have, and, I was chatting with Linda the other night, and is a conversation like when we're in the womb. That wasn't an empty space inside our digestive tract. I think it was a pool in its own right. The urine that we internally, breathed in through our nose, through our mouth, was in there for 9 months. That upon birthing, that water doesn't get secreted out, but the body starts to transmute from the inside environment to the outside environment. And I see this as a replica being inside the womb. And now we're physically outside the womb, bringing that experience being inside the womb and evolving. So how it does for us.
When we're in the womb, we're completely surrounded and supported by urine or in therapy, right?
Produced by the fetus.
The fetus is urinating inside of the womb, and therefore it's sitting in a puddle of its own urine. So the urine is in the nose, in the mouth, in the ears, in the eyes, up the bum, on the skin, all over the fetus, the baby, while it's growing, while it's nourishing, while it's maturing. It's totally supported by the urine. And then we come out, and then we start throwing all of our urine away, thinking that we need to get rid of that dirty waste.
This waste,
and what we need to do is to come back to it, because that's how we're supported. That's how we're healed. That's how we're nourished. That's how we're taken care of. That's how we were when we were growing and developing. That's how we are as a human being, as a species. We need to come back to that to heal and nurture and soften our skin and overcome digestive issues or anxiety problems or sadness, depression or headaches.
The ailments of the skin.
The ailments of the skin, to pull toxins out of the body. It helps detoxify the body. It's an anti-parasitic. It's an antibiotic. It's an
viral.
Antiviral.
Antifungal.
Antifungal. It kills bacteria and disease inside of the body. If we start bringing it back into our bodies, then we won't be getting sick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. We will, sickness is unnatural when you start bringing this material, this substance, our Shivambu, that's made by our body, for ourselves, and those that want to heal can do so for free.
Lose weight, heal pain, heal sickness, illness, or disease, overcome anxiety or depression, change your life, heal your life, change your life by changing your mindset and realizing some new information and applying that information in your life with new action, and your entire life can change.
Oh yeah, big time.
Okay, so before I get onto those jars back there and talk a little bit more about that, and before I start talking about the crystals that I want to buy from you, and before we start talking about blood types and all of that, I want to talk a little bit more about the fact that you kept this a secret for 45 years.
40 years.
40 years.
Came out 5 years ago.
You kept the secret for 40 years. Unbelievable. And you didn't tell your husband about it.
Well, I was drinking when I met him. I was in Thailand, drinking my own waters. And, at some point, the conversation was, come visit me in Budapest. And I said, okay. And like I had done in the past, I just withdrawed my urine consumption and, just slowly wean myself off.
And stopped for a while.
Yeah, to adapt to his patterns. Then if I needed, I, could throw one back and, everything would be okay. Often, one time when I was in Budapest, just had arrived, and I twisted my ankle, because all the streets are cobblestone, or at least on the street where he lived, and wrenched my ankle, and I heard it snap, and I was like, oh shit, did I bust it? went home and just peed on a rag and wrapped it and put a plastic bag over it. And, a couple days later, it was fine.
Because it heals pain.
Healings.
It heals pain. It heals
inflammation, so that the
ligaments.
tissues can repair themselves versus being stuck and stagnant.
If you've got pains in your body, you need to have a topical rub. You need to rub this stuff on your body, especially if you're using aged urine, which we're going to talk about there. And before we get on to that, I still want to stay on this just one little bit longer. You kept it a secret from your husband, because I kept this a secret from my wife, because if I told my wife,
they would leave us.
Yes.
Or my
wife would have been gone. My wife would have been gone. And when my wife found out, she almost went. Thank God she didn't. And over time now, she's starting to at least be okay with me doing it, as long as I keep it in the garage and I keep it out of the house and I keep it away. And I've got my own bathroom that I'm allowed to, okay, if you're going to do that, it's in your bathroom and it's like this, and this is how it's done. And we got it, and I got to do it in a certain way. And so, you know what? God bless her for allowing,
taking a risk.
Yes, and allowing this to work itself out, because this has now become a part of my life, and I knew she wouldn't be able to handle it, and I didn't want to share it. So, it has worked its way out, and it can work its way out, and it can come to the light, and you can share it, and you can come to the knowledge with it, but probably don't start with that. I do suggest that you start off with it secretly. Do it for yourself secretly, because no one's going to understand.
Secretly, without even drinking it, the application of putting, I call it piss in boots, and I leave that urine in the boot, and just keep adding to it, because it evaporates. You're getting, in, so to speak, in 3 or 4 months, depending on how frequent you're dipping in. But often when I'm cleaning it, I just throw that content of boot material, old urine, into the compost, and I get to marker my just like a dog pissing in a tree and markering its territory. I can do that too with allowing Mother Nature to flourish with the content of material that's within urine. I mean, as we discussed earlier, where that farmers in the olden days, spread manure all over the lands to grow crops. And now we've been, switched that up to a man-made material that hasn't really done much for crops or the earth.
So great to put it on the garden. Use that as compost. And
when I'm sitting in here, I can give a glance beside the urine, but there's plants here behind me. I'm sitting in the greenhouse, and this is an aquaponics system. And out of observation, when we were developing this, we inoculated the tank. There's about 1,500 gallons of water running continuously. I've turned off the pump so it's not so noisy, except the air pump for the fish. The system we inoculated with store-bought ammonia, and that water went sour. It never started to develop a particular bacteria that occurs within urine, living urine. And so we had to dump and excrete all that water into the backyard. And then we filled it up another system of 1,500 gallons. And then I used my aged urine to inoculate our system. And within that system, the aged urine, the bacteria recognizes ammonia, because we know when the aged urine's gassing up, it produces a lot of nice ammonia. Ammonia, when this bacteria develops, starts eating it. The fish exchange oxygen for they give off ammonia in the water, and that stresses the fish in the system if that water is not circulating or moving. And through our system that we have in the pit here that I'm sitting on top of, there's a container filled with the bacterium that live on a little tiny plastic piece, and that ammonia slips through and they eat it, and they have a waste product that's called nitrite 3 and nitrate 2, or nitrite. And these are chemicals that are naturally occurring from ammonia that gets fed to the grow beds where I'm growing herbs mostly. And through thinking about this, is when we return our aged urine back into our body, does it have that ability within the aquaponic system to help our body as well cleanse, but nourish it, because we're combusting the natural occurring ammonia that our body produces, but we don't know what to do with it. And is that the ammonia, this is a question that popped in my head, that is it where the ammonia rests in the body, is that the lymphatic system? And sometimes you've observed this, some urines are really strong and, full of aroma. Some of it's not so pleasant and some of it's, mild. And that process is how we can engage that something's changing inside. Because once we inoculated the system with my aged urine, that's when I came out with my husband as well, in the process. I said, well, if that store-bought pneumonia doesn't work, let's try the real stuff. And, that was it. In 4 weeks, by testing the water, you read these markers of the pH, the ammonia level, and then the N3 and the N2, the nitrites and the nitrates. There was go in 4 weeks. And we were waiting on the other batch almost 6 weeks. So it just starts making me think, is that also occurring physically? Because it's a self-contained system, just as like we are.
The lymphatic system is potentially where ammonia that the body creates is being
stored. And of course we release that, but ammonia also is it's a gas. So the lymphatic system has people have different dialogues of where that gets dumped or wasted through our body, or how the body removes the lymph. And it's the left subclavicle juncture, that the heart is introduced, and the lymphatic system is like its own personal drip. I think it helps our heart and pumping. It's a gas that I think it's part of making that pump work. We're not giving clear information how and why it works. I ask questions. One of my favorite anatomy teachers, Gil Hadley, and that's where I poked with him. I said, tell me more about this lymphatic system, because he has a great video that he takes the lymphatic system off a fresh cadaver, and he lays it out, and it literally looks like a super suit. But when the super suit, from his point of view, is too heavy, wet, it doesn't fly. When it's empty, it starts to fly like a cape. Because that's what it looks like. Giant cape. It goes down to the hamstrings, and it's a beautiful cape. It's amazing.
So the lymphatic system, it needs to be empty.
Empty. It's not completely empty. I think it's just part of like all the other parts and bits. There's a correlation. I think empty is like wringing out a sponge, and then you put the sponge back in the water, and how to I think that's where you get into the dry fasting. It's kind of like taking the sponge and wringing it out, and then you introduce some fluids of your choice or some fruits. That's some fresh distilled water that your body can plump up the sponge and, turn everything on. So the process of the last 3 years in a dialogue that we can go into, but it's just a practice that I've taken on, because I just want to have a more connection of how this engages, why are we here? And I know that people fast at a certain times, or they don't fast. And myself, I've been fasting for the last few years in this protocol, knowing when the moon is phasing through my sun sign that I choose to fast, because that also, the moon is inflictive. We can see when we're at the ocean how the tide is out and the tide is in. You know, we've been told this, that the moon dictates the tides of the oceans. And like, we're a mini ocean. As I look at the engagement of understanding and watching the calendar for when I need to fast.
So you're fasting in accordance to the phases of the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I love that.
It's a simple 28-day calendar, just like the same as a cell, we're told, lives for 28 days. It may be expire, but I think once you start adding that back in, those cells don't expire. They want to live. They don't want to die. The retardation of a cell is just due to lack of knowledge.
So this is where we're touching on, Shivambu could even be a part of immortality. The breatharians talk about this, right? The cell can live forever if nourished properly with light, with intention, with the right ingredient. Hilton Hotima would be the best source of information to get a deeper understanding of this information. Way too big a conversation to have in this short little dialogue, but search that out, look that up there, and get a deeper understanding here. I want to take it back to where this began, where you started talking about soaking your feet, because I think we were talking about how we get started with Shivambu, and we were saying that even before you start drinking it, do it in secret, don't tell anybody about it, but then don't even maybe start by drinking it, but start by putting it in your boots, start by soaking your feet or soaking your skin in it. Mm-hmm. This is a great, wonderful start.
Pee in the tub.
Put it on topically.
Yeah. Put it on topically, and you have 2 arms. You can experiment. I mean, I have a massage practice. I'm a massage therapist. So I engage a dialogue with clients that are open and, just soak one foot, put it on just one arm and watch, because you'll see the difference physically, real time, how it feels.
Right.
If one leg, it's great with people with psoriasis or eczema or some kind of...
Right. Any kind of skin disorder, blemishes of any kind.
And just do one side and watch, because you have 2 hands, 2 feet, you have 2 legs, and you can patch test,
That's it. That's it. Like, see, what I did was when I heard some people talking about urine therapy, people that I admired and looked up to, mentors of mine talking about urine therapy, I was like, what? Are you crazy? And then as I watched and listened, and then I said, okay, I'm going to try. And then I put it on my face, and then observed the next day. I'm like, damn, my face looks different and better. Like, I could see a difference in my skin overnight the next day. So I'm like, whoa. And then put it on again, and then see it again. And then, oh my gosh, my skin's improving from putting it on. So what would happen What would happen if I put it in? What if I put it in? Okay, I'll take it and I'll put it in the fridge and I'll cool it off that way to get away from the warmth, like just the bubbles and the warmth. I just had too much mental attachment. I'll put it in the fridge, and I started putting it in the fridge and then doing it that way. And then all of a sudden my wife found urine in
your juice.
What is this in the fridge? I said, oh, it's for my athlete's foot. It's good to put on your athlete's foot. So that's how I got out of that. Well, don't put it in my fridge, she said. Okay, it won't be in the fridge again. So I was able to pass it off at first as just a treatment for my athlete's foot for 1.5 years before my wife figured out that, no, this guy's drinking the shit. Like, he's drinking it.
She's watching you change. Metamorphosis.
She's seen some change. A lot of people have seen some change. And a lot of the change was fruit and fasting. I'm not taking away from that. And I don't want to take away from that. That is very important. Fruit, fasting, grounding, sunlight. all very important, all enormous aspects of healing and changing my life. But
Yeah.
I was able to talk about those things, and I was not able to talk about this urine therapy. So now I am getting more comfortable with sharing this and dealing with the negative feedback about it, and pushing forward and persevering anyways, because the world needs to know. Only because the world needs to know, not because I need to take all of the negative shit about it and all of the negative press and the craziness that I hear and all of the judgment that I hear and all of the people turning the negative eyes and the negative stuff on me. I don't need that. I'm doing it anyways because the world needs to know about the truth. That
The world needs love. And that's what urine is. It's love. Self-love. Simple. Keep it simple. It's self-love. I shared at the water symposium, all of my waters get a contract, and I speak, openly and proudly of a strong, loving, caring woman who makes a difference in this universe. This universe is within my body. I care for it. I acknowledge it for the past, present, and beyond. This is our daily bread. It's our daily health.
this is the blood of the Christ. This is probably what Christ was talking about. This is how he went into the desert.
This is the desert. I came to Epiphany this summer when I put all my urine out. The urine is to go out in the sun. 40 days, 40 nights. It rapidly changes what you call a young urine, the yellow stuff, into this beautiful, deep, brown, black elixir.
Okay, so we got to talk next. This is the aged urine versus the fresh urine. Now, aged urine is another step further, okay? First, just soak your feet. Just put it on your hands. Just put it on your cheek.
The fresh.
Just that first. Then if you're going to brave it, you want to try a little sip, just try a little sip. Maybe mix it with water, distilled water. Mix it and drink it like that first. Just a little sip. If you're going further, you start drinking your daily urine first thing in the morning, the very first daily urine. I like to save it and have it a little bit later in the day, only because I like to stay dry through the morning and stay dry, and then have my first daily urine 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock later in the day.
Sure.
If you're open to doing that, go to that level. Now, the next level is actually taking some urine and storing it for 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, 60 days, 9 months.
9 months.
Because that's full maturity. It comes to the oxygen. It gets oxygenated, and then it becomes super high, powerful.
You can see in this chart, it's starting to ferment properly. You get the different colors, stages of the urine.
As the urine gets in contact with the oxygen, it oxygenates, it becomes, it metamorphoses, and it becomes this healing, powerful medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you rub that, massage that into your skin, put it under your tongue, put it in your eyes, put it in your ears, put it up your nose, into your brain, up your bum.
It'll sting.
A little bit.
When it's still like this. But
it will saturate you. It will saturate your body. You will become in sync, into contact with it, and your body energy will rise, your vibration will rise. And as you raise your vibration, so will everything else in your life rise. Your communication, your love.
My husband will ask, why are people, because everyone's staring at you, and we're just going to Menards or doing something, and or just people start randomly walking up to us and start talking, and he's like, did you know them? I'm like, no, I have no idea who they were. But they're just there's a story. It happened this summer when we were back home visiting family in Hungary. There's a homeless man that his name is Lenny. And Lenny, and I engaged in the past time visiting. And he's like, oh, glad you're here. And what his movement is in Budapest, with the homeless people that are, veterans and being homeless, is he's shifting them to being, their eating habits, because he's been a vegetarian or a vegan for like 27 years. And in the conversation, he's just like, there's something that you want to share with me. And I said, there is. I said, now let's talk about urine therapy. And I, gauged with him about urine therapy. He had heard about it. And one evening he asked me to come to the park and, talk. And he did the translation of my English about urine therapy to, there was like 15, 20 people there in this little park, all homeless. And I just shared what, basic knowledge of what urine is and how to practice urine therapy. And I asked him to keep a log, because everybody usually homeless has some kind of disorder or a disease in their body, and diabetes, type 1 and type 2, if it's not some other types of issues in regards with not the reproductive, but the vascular system or the elimination system. Two basic systems that, get backed up. And I'm hoping my husband goes back today at 5 o'clock, catches a flight, and he'll be getting a diary from Lenny of what he's getting feedback from these homeless people as they've embarked on the urine therapy journey for themselves. And we've been home since 1st of July, so it's July, August, September, October. It's been 4 months, so we'll see what kind of feedback that Lenny has to share.
So, what does this mean for the world, for homeless people, for people starving, for people in Africa, for people in India, for people that don't have enough? Listen, you can survive.
They have enough. They just got to understand.
They just don't know. They have enough of everything.
Well, everything is, we've been taught, everything is outside of us, and that's just the wrong engagement of conversation. It's always within. It's all there within.
The urine has the amino acids. It has the hormones. It has all of the amino acids and vitamins and minerals that your body needs. It has the fluid, the distilled water. It has the salts. It has everything that your body needs to heal and be well. Raise your immune system. People don't need to starve. People don't need to be sick.
Nope.
People can overcome everything if they get the right information.
Mm-hmm.
If they change their mind.
Change your mind. As I put it simply I have 3 boys, raising them, and, I get a little attitude, and I always ask for a little more gratitude instead. Little attitude goes not very far, but a lot more gratitude takes you, opens doors beyond, and giving gratitude to our waters opens up these doors of our healing journey.
What would this mean to the world? What would this mean to the world if this information was to be common knowledge? That's why I'm doing this. That's why we're doing this, because we have to take a lot of flack for it. We have to go through a lot of negative feedback.
It's relearning. It's unlearning what is not right and is wrong of the dialogue of what you and I can practice daily. Everybody can practice. Even, it's not how much, Jared, one of our, Water of Life gentlemen, he's like, take a little sip, put it on your skin, one of his catch in his song that he sings, his little rap. It's a beautiful rap.
So just to bring it back here, fruit, fasting, big key elements, distilled water, grounding, sunlight, big key elements, all a part of healing.
Mm-hmm.
Shivambu.
Part of the sun gazing, the morning sunshine is more engaging with our mental process. Our evening, sunset is more engaging with the physical, the whole body. I observe the difference that there's more insightfulness, or I'm able to listen to my cells speak to me when I'm watching the morning over the evening. It's It's very interesting.
All a part of healing. Now, the aged urine you have behind you, like, look at the age. This is just part of it that you have.
That's just part of it.
Some of these jars are how old?
There's one in the bathroom that's about 3 years old that I'm playing with, that I do a daily, practice. I have 4 5-gallon glass containers. They're old terrariums. Your grandma had a terrarium with something in it, growing. Turn it upright because it's got a really nice wide mouth that you can put your arm in there, your foot. So there's like 4 of those hanging over here on the side. And then most of these are just gallon containers. So it's a variety pack. The younger stuff is from this year, spring. And the dark stuff behind it is from 2017 and 18. I usually will siphon off the top urine and get this collected into one jar from all these jars, and then start cleaning some of it or allow it to dry, which I showed you the crystals.
Okay, so let's move forward a little bit more, because I want to buy some of these crystals from you. This is like black market.
It's salt.
I want to get some of this.
I usually take one every other day of the salt crystal, and I'll put it under the tongue. It's interesting. I've observed it will last for 20 to 30 minutes, slowly dissolving. It's not like regular salt, because it's my salt. So they're crystals. These aren't cleaned because I allowed it to be in the urine, so they appear black. I'll see. They're just, big chunks.
Okay, so these are urine crystals. So you've aged the urine. Ideally, if you can age it for 9 months, full maturity of the urine. You age it for 9 months, and then you're laying it on like in a open kind of baker's dish, kind of.
Yeah, something glass. It's easier in a glass. I'm digging around here so you can see. The crystals can be quite big. This is the other one.
Right.
See that?
So then you're laying the 9-month-old urine in a glass jar and allowing it to bake in the sunlight.
Yep, I've done it in the sunlight and not in the sun. Just putting it in, just forget about it. But more often, I like to use like a pint-sized jar with a wide opening, and fill that jar and allow it to evaporate. And that takes close to 1.5 years with even that small amount. And you'll see, like on this jar, the different stages it goes through. The top here was evaporated, and then it settled, and then it evaporated again. And, there's 3 different stages fully engaged here that you can see of how the evaporation was going. And this is from 2017. So it's 1.5 years.
So it's the process is speeded up by putting it out in the sun. How long would it take to do it when you put it in the sun?
This was in the dark, so I would say within probably 4 to 6 weeks.
In the sun?
In the sun. A small container like this, or a pint size. Now the quart size will take a much longer process because there's more fluid in the evaporation happening.
So we let it evaporate, and we let it come right down to a hard crystal in the bottom, and the crystals form.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you can see that. And this one is kind of concaved. It's a perfect little square, but there's a divot inside the crystal.
So, urine crystals, 9 months to age it, and then weeks to 1.5 years, depending on how you're drying it, to actually prepare urine crystals. This could take a couple of years to get these, and that's why I'd like to buy a couple from her, just to have an experiment with this physical form of the urine crystal. And then once you've got that crystal, you could put it under your tongue. That's one thing. You could also chop it into a powder and
snort it.
And inhale it.
Yep.
you could inhale it. And I'm sort of intrigued by this possibility.
I've powdered several. Oh, that's the salt. In Rama's bag, occasionally he'd allow me to look inside the bag. So some of the things I tasted, very salty. So this is when you clean ormus and allow it to dry. So these are these crystals cleaned, and then I powder them. And then these are the crystals on the side of a jar that you can have a wide open mouth that after you pour out the jar and you can see the content of material or crystals on the side of the jar, you can scrape them out. It's like, your own sand.
Now, Dr. Bumi from Nigeria has talked a lot about the crystals to me, and he says that there's a real different relationship that you actually have with the inhalation of the powder than a different experience than drinking the urine or putting it on yourself topically. And all are different experiences, and so I'm very open to see what this different experience
is. Your dry DNA. So these are what I watched Rama do as a kid, at the table. He had all the urine on a picnic table one day, and looking like this on a picnic table, and it was
Swami Rama. You were watching him do this when you were 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 and 10.
So he would use an air hose from what do you want to call it, a fish tank. Those narrow hoses. I meant to bring one out here with me. And he would siphon, not pour. Some people will pour from a jar, but you end up getting some of your compound, the sediment, ormus, human ormus, in the container. So I have these jars in the back here are siphoned off the 5-gallon containers that are sitting over here on the side of the wall, and then collecting that ormus. And then I'll usually take half of this ormus to wash, and then or to dry to be a black crystal.
So it's the ormus that forms the crystal?
I think so.
Okay. The ormus.
And then this here is the crystal, but when being cleaned. When you clean your ormus, you urinate. After you take off the urine, you urinate fresh urine in your container. Let it settle and siphon off. Second day, fresh urine. Let it settle, siphon that off on the third day. On the third day, more fresh urine, and then siphon that off on the fourth day because you want it to settle. And then this material will be cleaned. The ormus will still look its color, but it'll be whiter. And then I usually put that in a 8x8 dish pan and let it dry.
Clean urine is what you use to clean the ormus?
Yep. Just like when people are using fresh water to clean ormus, same process. Just use your urine, not water.
So let the urine,
fresh urine.
First let the urine aged for 9 months. Then I take off the top layer of the aged urine. And I still
use it. Don't throw it away. It's
right, of course. Right, of course. And then pour my fresh urine on top of that. Let it settle for a day.
Just like a pint. It doesn't have to be the whole, or a cup of urine.
But that fresh urine is going to pull something out of the ormus?
It just cleans it because there's definitely a night and day difference. This is cleaned ormus, and this is uncleaned ormus.
And what do you find is the difference in terms of utilization or application from the two?
I think this is your pill under your tongue. And this here, I watched Rama make this, or process cleaning the urine and then putting it and drying it, and you're getting this. And it looks like when it's dry, it looks like this, but you have to scrape it off the pan.
Now that you could put in your brain.
Yeah, you can put this. This is your DNA.
This is your DNA. Put that in your brain.
Yeah. I think these are very, very salty. I mean, incredibly salty.
Put the ormus, if you don't clean the ormus under the tongue, digest that one.
Mm-hmm.
And the white, pure, clean ormus, dried and crystallized, right into the brain.
Straight to the brain. Just
Straight
like
to the brain.
people that use things up their nose.
Yes.
When I was cleaning this the other, this was a couple of years ago, I was cleaning some ormus. And, my son's like, what are you going to do? You're making cocaine. And I was like, that's what, it's just like, I could visualize how Rama would sniff. And then Clay bringing
You didn't understand it when you were a child.
No. Like what?
But after now you're getting it.
Yeah. And when you do this, it helps also stimulate, just like when you're drinking through the nose, it stimulates your, it's read in the Bible as manna. The manna, comes from heaven. The Bible, there's some Bible stories chatting about this, how they collected manna.
Yes.
This activates a very, so maybe we'll excuse it as it's mucus, but if it's clear, that's manna. The mucus that our brain produces, which there's a lot of up there, if you're not having drank through the nose, you get lots of funky mucus. But at some point, it's like an egg-like material. It's very gelatinous, and like it doesn't, and it has a very slight saltiness to it. And instead of yanking, spitting it out, thinking it's waste, I watched Rama, would hack on his hand, and he'd look at the material that he had, and then scoop it back in. But I couldn't ask questions why he did that. I mean, anytime I asked a why, he would tell me to go away and watch some more.
Now, it's interesting you brought that up, because I just started, putting it in my nose up into my brain. Like, that's only been 6 or 8 weeks for me.
Drinking the urine.
Through the nose, like inhaling it through the nose. I use the neti pot, and I drip it into my nose and let it come up into my pineal gland and let it come up into my brain. And it stings, right? But only for a moment. And it's almost like a little bit of it's a stinging, but it feels like a rewarding, almost stinging, a rewarding stinging, if that's possible. Like, there's something good happening here. Like, I should allow this stinging to happen in my brain. And when I started doing that, it's like I had like a nasal sound. Like my wife and my daughters, are you sick, Dad? People said, are you sick? Are you sick? Are you cold? I don't have a cold, but I've had this nasal sound in my nose, like this mucus that's been kind of freed from my brain, and it's now in my...
You have more oxygen going into your brain.
And I had the mucus there for a good 6 weeks, and now I feel like it's clearing. It's finally starting to clear, and I'm feeling so clear energetically and in my mind, and like emotionally risen, brought back to life from treating it up into my nose this way. So every single one, like up the bum, the enema, so valuable. I found that so valuable when I first started doing that. Mm-hmm. I've returned back to this topical, massaging it in, and so valuable. And again,
the organs, because immediately anything that we put on our skin goes straight into our bloodstream. Where does the blood get washed? The washing machine, and I'll call that the liver. And then the spin cycles the kidneys. And then it goes to the bladder. And then there's another conversation. You hold your urine. Hold your urine. It will, even as much as you want to go, hold it, because you can override it. We used to do this as a kid, but as we age, we run to the bathroom. We don't want to pee our pants. We don't want to dribble. The incontinence is off the chart in the population. It's ridiculous, and it's happening to younger and younger generations. It's not just for the old anymore, right? I'm sure you're hearing the conversation.
I've got clients that are jumping in the gym and they're peeing on themselves. It's so common, especially with ladies that have had multiple children. Mm-hmm. So common.
So the conversation there is that you're engaging that stimulation. The longest that I've held my urine is for 30 hours. I try to practice that within the time frame on the moon thing, to hold my urine as long as I can, particularly after 24 hours, say in the dry fast, that when I've reached the 24 mark, then I've urinated an excessive amount out because I'm dry fasting. But I save that, but then I start holding, exercising the self-reabsorption that the bladder is capable of doing. There's there's a village in the Philippines that will practice upon marriage. A young couple will hold their urine for 3 days. And the consummation that they produce, the urinating, they exchange urine through, body rubs, consummating their marriage. And the conversation, I've chatted with my Philippine neighbors, and I've asked a couple of them, like, have you heard this? Have you heard this? And one of the elders of the family, of my neighbors, because they asked their family members that are older, and they're like, yeah, there is, chatter in their practice upon marriage. Okay, so which then again, that level of integrity is done before the actual marriage. They've already prepared their body to do this exercise of reframing from urination for 3 days.
And I want to bring that back to, Dr. Morris talking about the lymphatic system and the skin being the largest detoxification organ, and the liver and the kidney being large detoxification organs. And
those are lungs. So are the lungs.
The lungs. So we're breathing in and out a lot of toxicity and releasing it that way. But the skin being the largest detoxification organ, when we start applying it physically on the skin, it's going into the bloodstream, that there is massive healing that happens. And I find when I massage this stuff onto myself, that the change within 4 to 6 hours after is like monumental. And if you have pain in your body,
it's gone.
Yes.
It's gone. Something that, Rama iterated, because I met him 15 years later because we moved. And when I was at school, I was going through cosmetology school and to be an esthetician. I ran into Rama again, and that was, a miracle in its own right. It was a very intense experience for me to, see him.
And be able to talk to him now as a mature woman.
As a mature woman. And of course, his language or his English much, much better too. Because he was never, he knew some English, but his accent was so thick.
What a story. What a story.
Listen to him. And I finished school. I already lent out another book, but this was one of the books he gave me. I don't know if you can read that.
Cool. The Chemistry and Wonders
the Human Body.
The Human Body, George W. Carey. George W. Carey.
And then 2 small herb books.
The Vitamin Herb Guide, the Global Herb Manual. These are given to you by Swami Rama.
Yep. And there was another book. It's called by Dr. Bernard Jensen.
Yes, Bernard Jensen. Yes.
Through tissue. One question I can show you. I always asked and wondered in the years, this glossary in the back here, it says herbal glossary, but you can see what it says in there. Shivambu glossary. All the things, how herbs manifest in our process of healing, because it's enzymes or the energy within these, herbs. I mean, this is just 150 different herbs, very common. It's not like obscure, but I always, pondered, why didn't he ever give me a urine book, more about Shivambu? But I think that's the part of just knowing that we each have our own journey with it. It's an individual journey. Everyone should understand it as it's an individual journey as we want to heal our exterior and interior.
Awesome. Awesome light. Awesome light, Rosalind. Awesome message. Fantastic story.
There's
So
more.
grateful, so grateful for you to make the time to speak with me today.
Certainly.
I'm
We
so
can do it again.
grateful for this information. I hope that people have heard it and received it. I hope that people have seen the light here today. I hope that we will talk again, and I'm glad we're now friends, and we
Yeah.
will interact further. This is great. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Awesome.
Enjoyed sharing with you and all the listeners that take the time to embark on the Year in Therapy journey.
Awesome.
The Shivambu journey.
Awesome. Yes. Okay.